So, what does an average day working at the Coffee Bean look like for you?
Well, every day depends, depending on the weekdays or the weekends. Weekends are usually more mellow and chilled out, and weekdays would be when the rushes come in. And every coworker has their own business. It's an absurdity that goes on. It's a flow, but also an insanity at the same time. It's really cool because everyone has their own thing to do. You have people pulling shots, steaming the milk, making the ice blended drinks, and we're running into each other, but never into each other's way. So it really looks terrific. And the customers, just a terrific batch of people. There's never a dull moment with the customers because there's every new face and every familiar face is always a delight to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how would you describe most of the customers that come in?
They're usually very nice people. Some of the regulars tend to be a little bit more on the grumpy side, but generally speaking, they're very nice customers, and they don't have much of an attitude. Very polite, very nice people.
How do you feel about interacting with the customers that come in?
I love it. I do it as much as I possibly can. Because I also study sociology, I like to ask them where they're from and if they have an accent, how long they've been here, where they've been. Yeah, everything is interesting to me to see what they have to say.
And how would you describe the typical interaction?
Typical interactions, some of them are kind of distant and they don't feel the need to converse with me. So they just keep it short, like give me what I want, I'll pay you and I'll get out. But for the ones that have a little bit more time and they're a little bit more cheerful and chatty, they like to talk to me and see how my day has been. They like to see where I'm from sometimes. So it just depends on who you get. You can usually tell who the talkative ones are and who the people who are more introverted are.
So how would you describe, the more friendly customers? How would you describe them versus the less friendly, more distant customers?
Well, usually the friendlier customers tend to make more eye contact and they are usually smiling. But sometimes if they're not smiling to begin with, you can get one out of them very easily. So that's always nice. And then the unfriendly customers would be, usually you can tell that they're very temperamental and impatient and they have too many things going on to think about conversing with anyone but the people that matter. So they just want to get in and get out.
Would you say that the older customers or the younger are more friendly?
Oh, some of the nicest customers I've had have been older people, older gentlemen and lovely women and everything. But I would have to say, because especially we're right next to UCLA, the younger college students, some of them are stressed and sleep deprived and they have no time and no patience whatsoever, but just because they're young, they feel more of a need and a patience to be nice. But typically, I would say it's the older customers more often than not that lose their patience much more easily and they get rude easily.
And would you say that certain customers from certain ethnic backgrounds tend to be friendlier than others, or?
Well, it's hard to say. I could be biased because I'm Persian, but I always know Persians to be very difficult customers. Unfortunately, I try not to be because I am one and I don't want to add into the stereotype. And I've actually had my coworkers ask me that Persians are really difficult, aren't they? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. But no, you have people from every background. A lot of my nicest customers have been Persian. A lot of my nicest customers have been white, Latino, Asian. I get everything. Some of my customers, even the security guards that work here, are from Africa, and they're very nice people. So it just depends on what they're where they came from and what's made them difficult. Not really where they're from,
Okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't say that it's a cultural thing and it's more an individual thing for people?
Well, it's hard. I'll be to be completely honest. I feel like for Middle Easterners and for the Asian cultures in general, it is more of a need in their culture. If they came from a country that's not in the Occidental side of the world, then they feel more of a need to be polite because it's a part of your culture. But I feel like a lot of Americans think they can get away with being rude to customers. Like, for example, where I come from, they are it is in the culture to be nice to the servers because they have the right to be mean to you. So you don't want to piss them off. But over here, it's more like the customer's always right and we're here to serve you. So they have more of I guess a right or a feeling in their head that, yeah, maybe I can be mean to them and get away with it. So I tend to notice that they put more effort into being nice, but it doesn't necessarily make them nicer than other customers, if that makes sense.
Yes, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. And then what would you say you most often hear from customers? For example, thank you, please, and is there anything else you can elaborate on?
Well, they always do tell me to have a nice day. Some of them do say please and thank you. Other than that, it doesn't really get too specific. It's just the occasional thank you so much and have a nice day is what really brightens the day up for me. Yeah.
And do you ever happen to have, more intimate conversations with customers? And if so, how frequently would you say you do?
Well, one of my best friends is Ethiopian, and I have one Ethiopian customer that works in this area. And ever since he found out that my friend is Ethiopian, he likes to give me the entire history and background of Ethiopia, and I don't mind because I love learning these things. But and not just with him, I've had, I think, a couple Persian customers do that with me as well because they tend to be shocked that I'm not from Iran and I speak Farsi fluently. So they try to get as much information out of me. They try to see what I know and what history I know. And if they know I'm not from their country, there are very few people that fill me with knowledge because they can see the interest in my face. So it's not often that it happens, but every time I get the select few people that want to talk to me, they're very into telling me everything they know.
Thank you. And then if you could just walk me through a typical conversation with a customer when they are ordering. You could give as much detail as possible for each step.
Okay. So usually the orders that I get would be something along the lines of, hi, good morning. Can I get a regular sized cup of coffee with, for example, a blood orange cranberry muffin? And I'm going to have that to go, please. And I say, okay, is that all for you? May I have your name, please? They give me their name, and I give them the total. And they pay either with cash or credit, and I ask them for their receipt. They would say yes or no. They wait for their food to come, and as they're leaving, they usually say thank you, have a nice day. So that's about how it goes, yeah.
And would you notice a difference in, how polite a customer is not only on the day of the week, but time of day as well?
Yeah, I feel like people tend to be more, obviously I think it goes without saying that they tend to be a lot more chipper when their work day is about to end, especially if it's towards the weekend. I feel like we get bigger tips on the weekends as well, so that has something to do with it. So on Fridays at the end of the day, they're very happy. On Saturday and Sunday, they're also very, in a dandy mood. But I would say on Mondays through Thursdays, especially Monday, it gets progressively better as the week goes on. Monday would be the worst day, and I think at around 11 to 1 or 2 o'clock in their midday, when they've had the first day of the week and they've been working for a few hours, that's when they're really the most difficult to deal with. Yeah.
And then how long, I'm sorry I didn't ask earlier, how long have you been working here?
Oh, I've been working here since about end of March, early April.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could just describe what it was like, I'm sure you guys have a training process here, and if you notice a difference in how customers treated you then versus now, especially knowing that you have more experience now versus then.
You'd be surprised how many customers are very impatient with people who are training, and I don't know why that is, but there was very few people that as soon as they looked at me, because even in Coffee Bean, when we're wearing our uniforms and we have our name tags, it says under your name if you're a barista in training. And even when people can see that, there's only very few people that will look at me, and if they realize it, some of them will realize before they see, and they're like, oh, are you in training? Is this your first day? I'm like, yeah, it is actually. And they're like, oh, okay, no worries, I've been there, you don't take your time, have fun. I'm like, okay, thank you very much. But some people, especially the ones who are regulars, I notice, have absolutely no patience for people in training. And I guess, it comes with the territory, but yeah, it was a little bit disheartening to know that they had no patience for me.
I can definitely relate to that because I worked at a bakery and we had this big old trainee badge.
Yeah.
And people would get, like, I'd be fumbling with the change and they'd be like,
What are you doing? Yeah.
what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And, just to reiterate, do you feel that on average the customers are more polite, neutral, or rude when ordering? You could just
I would say more often it would be neutral. They're not polite or rude. But in terms of being polite and rude, I think those two are balanced out. Most of the time, my customers will be neutral, and then there's like the other 10%, 5% would be they're polite, very polite, and the other 5% would be that they're pretty rude. But more often than not, then they're pretty fine. Yeah.
And if you could just describe, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
What exactly it looks like when a customer is polite, what exactly it looks like when they're neutral, and what exactly it looks like when they're rude.
Sure. When they're polite, there's a lot of eye contact. They're usually smiling. They have you can usually sense their warmth and their essence, and you can tell that they're going to be very patient and kind. And as soon as they come in and they have, because every time a customer comes in, we'll say good morning, good afternoon. Depending on the way they respond, you can usually tell how it's going to be when they're ordering from you. So they're usually you can tell instantly when they're going to be polite, but usually when they're rude, you don't tell in the beginning, but it comes out kind of unexpectedly. Like, for example, I've had customers come in and you're supposed to be a customer to use the restroom. If I ask them, have you ordered anything from us? They get very rude instantly, and it's actually very surprising because you don't expect them to. But that's how usually rude customers are. Their whole tone just drops instantly. And for neutral customers, it's very mundane. They just stay the same. They usually, a lot of times, actually, they start out very nice, and then sometimes they just get more mellow as I keep talking to them. So they have no patience, but they're not going to be rude. So there's that one too, yeah.
And depending on how many other customers you have in the store, what would you say is the most common type of customer?
Between neutral, polite, and rude? I would say mostly neutral for sure. There would be slightly more polite than rude, and usually the ones who want to stay inside of the Coffee Bean, the ones who are looking to spend their couple of hours here, will be much more polite. And usually the people who are obviously in a hurry and they have no patience and they want to just get in and go, they're going to be in a rush and they're going to be very impatient and rude and just trying to get everyone out of their way. So yeah.
For me, the differences between you and your employees and the dynamics. And
in terms of what exactly?
I would say just customer interaction and how you guys differ and how you guys are similar.
Oh, well, with customer interaction, that's actually a good question, really, because as an employee, not even of Coffee Bean, but of any establishment, as an employee, I'm obligated to be very nice to them, and I'm obligated to make sure that everything is going well for them so that they don't get disappointed or upset or just give them any reason to ruin their day. And for the customers, it depends obviously on what kind of customers. The neutral ones and the polite ones will be fine, and they'll be usually more patient and accommodating to giving me the time so I can get them what they need. And that's usually how they function. But for the rude customers, it's more like you can see me trying to keep my patience as I'm trying to speak to them, and they lose patience, and they get, actually a couple of customers that I've had when I've lost my patience, they get kind of taken aback and they tend to realize that they're wrong. So that's always interesting when that happens. But
and how would you describe, what does it look like when you quote unquote lose your patience?
Well, usually you can see me kind of struggling for the right words to say because honestly speaking, I'm a very blunt person. So if someone tends to tick me off, I'm used to telling them right away. but because I'm in a professional mindset when I'm at work, I have to stop and think about what I'm going to say to them. But usually what I do say, even though I say it politely, it will get my message across, and I make sure that the customer understands where I'm coming from. And especially if it has things to do, such as, for example, we have some customers that come in that are banned from the store, and they still try to get into the store, for example, use the restroom, and you'd be surprised, there's a lot of them that they come in and they mess up the restroom completely, they leave a mess, and they've gotten banned because of that. So, and a couple of my supervisors and my fellow baristas do not have the gut to really go in and talk to them, and I don't blame them. They're not nice people to deal with. Mm-hmm. But usually when I'm the one that has to go in and talk to them, they instantly flip a switch, and for those people, they get very embarrassed, and they just feel the need to talk about suing everyone, then they run out. So yeah, that's usually how it goes.
So what types of customers are the ones that go in and mess up the bathroom?
Unfortunately, it would be some homeless people. I hate to admit it, but that's the truth of it. Some of them obviously are very nice, and they would like to use the restroom, but because they haven't been customers, they're not allowed to, just for that reason. But there are also, I actually tend to notice, it's really weird, honestly, I notice a lot of handicapped people as well. And I don't say this, obviously disrespectfully. I mean, I really think they purposely go in there to mess our bathrooms up. I've had some people steal towels and napkins from us, and I had actually just a couple of days ago, there was a lady that went in there and she left a mess in our restroom, and as she was leaving, and someone she was on a walker, and she was clearly disabled from her legs, and as she was trying to leave the store, and someone tried to help open the door for her just as an act of being polite, she started swearing them out and cussing them out, and we all had to go and calm her down, because it was really amazing, to be honest. Not in a good way, but yeah, it was really shocking. It's usually, I would say, handicapped people and the homeless people in this area. Other than that, we've never had any, just the normal day-to-day customers go in and mess our stuff up.
And what do you guys do if you notice a customer go in and mess up the restroom? How do you guys handle that?
Well, usually if we can see that someone's about to go into the restroom who looks like they're not supposed to be in there, we don't give them the restroom code to begin with. But if they're usually taking too long, we can just bang on the door, and if there's a problem, we call in security to take care of them and make sure they don't come around to our area again, because we can see the line of customers to use the restroom building up and people getting impatient. That's when we have to step in. Yeah.
Now, have you guys ever had a major conflict with customers in the store?
Yeah, absolutely.
And go ahead.
We've had a couple of customers come in and pee on the middle of the floor. We've had a couple of customers, actually for one of my supervisors specifically, he's gotten sworn out, and they've given him homophobic slurs, and they've thrown things at them. And yeah, you'd be amazed. It's really a small minority, but when it happens to you, it's absolutely shocking. And yeah, one of the customers that got banned here for using the restroom and messing it up constantly, she actually got so mad at us that she just pulled down her underwear in the middle of the lobby and peed all over our floor. And yeah, that's...
Now, in your observation, how would the customers that you've observed, acting in that manner, how would you describe them? Age, ethnicity?
Well, ethnicity actually ranges, but in age, I would say they're usually on the older side. I would say roughly 55 to 70 years old. And yeah, that's the median age range, but that would be, the ethnicity has nothing to do with it, but usually they tend to be on the older side.
Days of the week do you typically work?
It depends every week for me, actually. Usually I'm working on a couple of weekdays, for example, Tuesday, Thursday, sometimes Wednesdays, and then weekends I'm working either Saturday or Sunday. It's usually not both. Yeah.
Okay. And now could you explain, just the procedure of opening the store?
Absolutely. So when you're opening the store, you'll have one supervisor and one barista coming in at 5 in the morning. Yeah, and the first thing we do typically is we set up the patio, we put out all the chairs, we raise the umbrellas, we clean everything off if there's any gunk or anything left on the tables. And we come inside and fix the security alarm, turn on the lights, turn on the radio. We fix up the bake case, which has all the pastries and cookies and stuff like that inside of it. We make the coffee, the first batch of coffee, decaf, dark, the light brew, everything. We make espresso. We make the extracts for the ice blends and the regular iced coffees. And yeah, that takes us about half an hour until the first couple of customers come in, and that's when we really open.
Okay. And when if you're opening, how would you describe most of the people that come in the morning on the weekdays?
Honestly, they're actually very chipper. I don't know how, but usually the people who tend to be early birds are not what you would expect. They're not grumpy or upset to be here at all. They just know that they need to get their coffee, but they're very, very nice about it because usually these people are regulars.
Okay.
So they're cool, yeah.
And how would you describe them? What are they wearing? What do they look like? How old do they appear to be?
They're usually in business attire, I would say. Very few of them will come in casual clothing, almost little to none. And the age range, I would say, would be from late 20s to early 40s. Every single background you can think of, I've had them all. But usually that's the age range that I get. The people that tend to come in earliest in the morning that like to wake up early to come to get their coffee would be around there. Yeah.
And then what would you say the typical customer midday looks like?
That would usually be a lot more UCLA students.
Okay.
Yeah, very comfortable casual clothing, carrying their backpacks, and getting ready to throw down their computers with a latte on their side. Yeah, absolutely.
And then the evening customers?
Evening customers, we get a lot more couples. Yeah, so we do get a lot more couples that like to roam Westwood. Then they crave drinks, they come in for a drink, and usually they like to get hot lattes, sometimes chai lattes, whatever's more romantic in the moment. And they'll be very sweet about asking one another if they want to get a pastry item, but we all know that the guy doesn't want to pay for more because, he's already been through enough. And yeah, that's usually how the day goes in the evening. But there's a consistency of niceness throughout the day, but there's also some people who have just had enough by the end of the day and they have nothing else to do with anyone. So yeah.
Now, would you say that you as a female versus the male employees, there's a difference in how customers treat?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a huge difference, and you'd be amazed because even though my male coworkers are just as nice as I am, for some reason, people are not as patient with male workers as they are with females. And I've noticed this not only in Coffee Bean, but in the multiple places that I've worked. I noticed that for example, and also I've noticed that my male coworkers tend to lose patience slightly more easily than we do. But on the other side, the customers lose patience more easily for them as well. And they're not quite as nice to them. And I think it has to do with everything. It has to do with your gender. It has to do with your height. I'm very short. I'm 5 feet tall. So I feel like the taller you are, they also have more of a reason to be mean to you, which is why the guys get more crap from them. Excuse my language, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
But yeah, and the age as well. If you're somewhere where you're not considered a kid and you're not considered an older person, for example, from the ages like 25 to 40-ish, they're going to be more rude to you more often than not because I'm 19 years old and they can tell that I'm very young, so they see me as a kid and they want to have patience and be kind to me. Whereas my male co-workers are about 30-somethings and you can tell, it's very visible that they have no patience for them and they're very rude to them very easily.
Now, would you say that applies for male and female customers, or would you say it varies?
I think male customers tend to get more impatient with male employees. females do as well, but it's slightly less on that scale. Like they have a little bit more, women customers have a little bit more patience in general, but they also have less patience for male employees. But male customers will lose it the fastest for male employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you attribute that to?
I really think it's the way that I think this is mostly psychology and sociology, how men just see each other. And because women tend to be very emotional beings, where we tend to be very nice to people, we have the virtues of patience and all these beautiful, magical things that make us women, I guess. And men are very logic-based and analytical, and if they feel as though you're not coming up to par and you're not doing something right, it's much more easy for them to just look at you and justify it as, well, you're not doing your job properly, so I'm not going to have patience for you. And because they have there's a different way that men see women. They see us as very pure and innocent people, so they tend to be, I feel, nicer to us. And I notice this not just in the workplace, but in daily life. Men have a very they have a love for women that's not explained, but for men, they judge each other very harshly. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the meter. Do you want to pause it and go, okay?
Okay. And, you mentioned that you are Persian. How would you say that customers treat you, whether, people from different ethnicity and ethnic backgrounds?
Well, usually Persians don't typically notice that I am Persian because for some reason they don't see it. I don't look stereotypically Persian to them, but I can always tell. And the minute I ask them, they get a little bit excited. And they look at me and they try to speak Farsi to me because unfortunately a lot of the kids, Persian kids in this day and age, they don't really speak Farsi that well. So they try to test the waters with me, and as soon as they see that I can speak it fluently, they get very happy, they get very excited. They're like, oh my God, were you born here? Where'd you come from? How long have you been living here? And that's how the conversation typically goes. But when they find out I am Persian, it instantly makes them a little happier because they feel a little bit more at home. And actually, a couple of times I've gotten really nice tips. Like I had served 4 Persian ladies cappuccinos, and they gave me a $5 tip. They're very nice to me. And it goes, without saying, that's what people of the same race think they need to do for each other. But I'm sure if I spoke, for example, Mandarin, the Chinese people that I ran into would also be very impressed and happy. So it really just depends on what mother language you've learned growing up.
So what would you say about, even with all the current events and stuff like that, how would you say that, Caucasian people treat you? Or white people, or Hispanic, or Asian, or Black?
That's a terrific question, actually. In current events, at my job, I've never gotten discrimination, not that I know of. If the way that I see it is I can usually tell if someone's going to be rude to me just because they're having a bad day, and that's usually what the case is. But to say that I've been discriminated against because of my race or because of the way I look, it would be a lie if I told you that, because I feel like they know well enough now. I think they've been educated enough at this point that they realize that we're not all bad necessarily, Yeah. But outside of work, I've gotten it a couple of times, but never when I'm working. They're very nice people to me usually.
Now, would you say that more of your coworkers are males or females?
Definitely males. There's very few females that work here.
Okay. And then what's about the average age?
I would say late 20s is the average age.
Okay. And what's the ethnic background of most of your coworkers?
Well, I guess about half of them would be Latino. We have some Asian. I'm the only Persian one. And there's one Caucasian. And yeah, that's about it. A lot of my coworkers are Mexican or Salvadoran, and everything else varies.
How you doing?
And is there anything else you'd like to share with me about your experience working here?
Well,
Dan, you want to whip on this?
Speaking sociologically, it's been a pleasure because, especially in Westwood, it's really diverse and it's a beautiful city, and everyone is really terrific. Just generally speaking, every race, every color, every age, ethnic background, gender, sexual orientation, everyone is just as nice. And you can't ever pick and choose. That's what you learn really from working at places like this, that you can't ever pick and choose people and how to treat them by the way that they look, because that would be just rude, I guess. But no, everyone's nice, and you just have to look at people with a little bit of love and everything works out in the end.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.